All right. So, with no further ado, I will turn it over to David and let him show you his masterpiece.
Yeah. So, hi, my name is David. I live, like I said earlier, outside of Boston, Mass. We're going to do a little tour of my small Norfolk and Western branch line. It's a, I guess you could almost say freelance branch line. I call it the Wolf Creek branch, after having dug through Google Earth and found a little area called Wolf Den that didn't happen to have a railroad in it. So there we go. That's how I got the name. Um, so yeah, it is freelance. It's actually based on a track plan by Lance Minham. I'll show you that just to give you some context of what we're looking at. The main point of this thing is to use the perimeter of the layout space and the center peninsula twice. So essentially, we'll start off over here talking, and then you can come along, and then there's going to be tipples. There's enough tipples around to actually make it feel like you're switching a branch line dedicated to coal. Skip this. This actually is a little bit different over here. I'll show you. Track schematic wise, it's no different, but scenic wise, it is. Then you'll come back around here, and then it comes all the way back and reuses the center peninsula. It has a continuous run loop because, my opinion is the reality is even a layout built for switching and operations is probably just in display mode for most of the time, especially if you have kids that want to see your trains run in circles. So if you ever are trying to design a track plan, Lance, he's got a lot figured out. Particularly best shapes to go around a room, and the best use of the space. So the layout, my goal was to have enough NNW stuff in it to make it feel like it's the NNW, without it being prototypical. I prefer to freelance my models with realistic stuff sprinkled throughout. The other thing I enjoy is dioramas, but that's not this. So the yard, and we can start off, starts off over here. And this is treated as fiddle staging and a little bit of flat switching. It could loosely be thought of as Weller Yard on the Buchanan branch. The idea being the coal comes here and the empties come here and they go out in both directions. North, it's the typical model railroad. You're looking north when you're looking at the train set. And going that way would be going back off the main line, probably to Vivian. There is an OPSIG article on this layout that I forgive the writing as I joke. The writing is actually several years old, and although it published earlier this year, it explains. You can read it and learn how the Norfolk and Western didn't work, because of all my bad misunderstandings about how railroads work. So essentially, you gather up your loads here. I generally act as the agent or company person that tells the crews how many hoppers they need. Very simple operations from that perspective. You have a couple of turns, a couple of shifters that go out depending on the time of day, and there's a meet with a passenger train if we're feeling real sporty. That'll usually be staged at the end of the line, and then we'll meet in the middle. So this one right here is an American Model Builders kit. I actually just loved the kit. I built it independent of the railroad, and then just stuck it right there until I built the building or the yard offices that I like from Weller, but I haven't gotten there yet because I like that thing. Over here, I've got some employee housing. We got a foreman's house, and then which is a kit from the society. And then I liked that, and I scratch built a couple of section houses that I found in photographs in the various branch line books. And all the tipples are all completely made up. They don't nothing even close to real life, as we were joking before. Tipples are huge things that don't lend themselves to being modeled well if you want to have anything else on the railroad. So that one is part of the continuous run connection. You'll see some loads and an empty station there. Comes back down, past some signals. They're a mix of New Jersey signals and some stuff from Integrated Signal Systems. And then I have traffic control running, even though it probably wouldn't have traffic control as far out, I'd like signals. Comes over to this side of the tunnel. And unfortunately, my little don't go into the tunnel sign from the society. It fell down, but we come across here. Comes back out. This is all basically foam carved. This is some of my earlier, this is probably 8 years old at this point. So I think it held up pretty well. And there's some of those signs about don't go into the tunnel unless it's your job. I really like those decals that were put out by the society. I made a whole bunch of signs that the children often love to touch and poke, so they don't last too long, but it come past over here is some kind of nice trees. Most of my trees are super trees, although I'm starting to add in some pretty nice detailed ones, like this one here. It's made out of like wire and stuff rather than super trees. I'll just set that down like there. Pretty durable that way. Come past here, I've started building swamps because for some reason I find that enjoyable. It gets more detailed on the swamp as you go past. Some cypress trees because why not? And then some willows, and then my little birds and some down logs and things. And so that, I talked a bit on the way. It's big enough that it makes it feel like you went somewhere, which is kind of a good thing. So the point of the layout is you're going to start here out into the yard, and then you kind of go out a ways and come back, and you kind of feel like you went out into coal country, right? So over here, this is another little tipple, and this is an American Model Builders kit that I liked it, so I put it together. And then some cabin housing over here. It goes past my first high signal. And then coming past, it comes to what I call Wolf Creek Junction. So this is on my small layout, this is my one fully controlled siding with CTC on it. This is where meets happen on the layout and where kind of the drama of going out to Wolf Creek Junction, going out to either mine number 2 or mine number 1 behind us, and having to wait for instructions and then follow the signals and come back on the phones and talk to me 5 feet away if you're the engineer and the crew. This happened to be running tonight, so I had my my K1 out with some empty hoppers. Over here, this would be the spur off to Wolf Creek mine number 2, which comes back over here. Got some empty stage, and then actually I've been working on this layout. I was joking earlier, this part of the layout just been ripped out since last week and been basically completely rebuilt. I had some problems with the foam sub-road bed shrinking over time and put in a fault crack, so I've had to rip out a bunch. And actually, I kind of validated one of the reasons why I use matte medium as my primary glue and everything. I soaked everything in isopropyl alcohol for about 30 seconds, and the track came right up, and I was able to work on it right away. That's all, only a couple hours old being up, but I started doing this about 2 weeks ago. This is probably my new favorite corner of the layout. I was saying earlier, I used 2-inch foam for my layout base on top of 7/8 plywood box frame. And I don't recommend the foam as a base. One, it's soft. If you push on it, it will indent. But then 2, it's not stable. It will shrink and expand over time. And if that's going to happen, then in my opinion, you're better off with high-grade plywood, which is what I've been slowly switching to. Over here, I decided to put in a wooden trestle is still getting built. The water, this will be the creek. It's not, doesn't have enough gloss medium on it yet to look fully like water, but it's on its way. That's being done with just some faux painting and then gloss medium, which is like if you have gloss paint, it's just the paint with no pigment in it. And over here, it's all natural materials, although I do paint. So like, you know, I'm on layer number 2 of some of this. So this has had like a gray base and 1 or 2 washes put on it, starting to get different color shades and variations. I started using artist supplies to do that stuff, pumice gels, fiber medium, that kind of stuff from Golden. It's probably a really nice to go. And I've been working on these, slowly adding some details so I can get the focus. Yeah, there we go. Got the bottom end with a little bit of growth on there and some grime and everything else on it. I really like building trestles. They're a lot of fun. I'm gonna come over here. This is Amy, the town of Amy. It's only named after my wife. This is it's supposed to be a number 2 depot. It's scratch built. The joke is I kind of finished both of the stations on my layout a little bit before before the last batch of number 2 station kits was done. So there's scratch built stations here. I know across the tracks is another tipple, or I don't even know what you call it. I'm going to keep calling them tipples. I don't know what I'm talking about. So it's got a couple of hoppers waiting on it. And it's got a little yard track, and over here a farm, got some outbuildings going in. I kind of joked before, this will sound like broken record to Jim, but my favorite, you know, the joke is all models are wrong, but you know, are they convincing? And so this one I really love because I got the perspective wrong. I put this board on it. The board is on the wall instead of up on the overhang of the roof like they're supposed to be. And I find that really funny because it's just one of those classic things where you're looking at a photograph and you don't notice like what depth something's at because the picture's in 2 dimensions, right? You come past a little farm scene that's usually in disarray because my children love it. Although they'll be upset because I took out the good John Deere tractor tonight. Old Model D. Came past a water tower because you got to have a water tower because steam locomotives are awesome and they need water. And some old equipment off in the woods. Past another no trespassing sign or don't walk on the bridge sign. I love those things. And over here is another trestle that I built a while ago now. This whole section of the layout I built on the bench and then brought it over and installed it. I've been slowly improving things and adding in new textures and dirts and stuff. And then I ended up liking the dry creek so much it's now the dry fork of the Wolf Creek. And it comes past another set of signals. And then if you were to continuously run for display running, you just go underneath all the facilities over there. Or if you're going to keep driving, you're going to come along the tracks to the town of Davie, which is it's what my grandmother-in-law called me. And so it turns out, you know, there's a town called Davie on the layout, and the station lettering happened to have that name in it. And so it seems like fate. Come back over here. This is my little, you know, my one stereotypical, you got to have a town on your layout. Got some company housing, duplexes, and then the one for probably the foreman with the white picket fence, and the church, which is a cornerstone kit and is way too opulent with its stained glass and everything for how far out we are. I'll turn on the lights in a little bit and you kind of see what I mean. It's like I had to turn down the interior lighting in the building just because the stained glass is a little bit over the top. Over here you can see Davie. See if I can get focus on anything. Nah, it seems to want to do what it wants to do today. Mixing up, and then the Pickleworks kit, because I probably should have done a lumberyard or something like that. That would have been pretty common, but pickles are a thing, and I built this with my wife when she was my girlfriend, so and that was before I had a layout or even a house. But it's on the train set because of that. But from a modeling standpoint, it gives me a reason to have something other than hoppers. Boxcars are nice when you only have coal, so it's a nice thing to have. And the layout ends here. Depending on the day, I'll decide either this is just an extra track or it's an interchange with either the CNO or the Virginian, depending on whatever railroad my guest operator likes the best. But it's a nice place. It's got a little area to turn around, turn the consist around and run back to the main yard. So typically, there would be a passenger train staged here to start off operating session, and it would sit there until the guest operator has taken their train out, gone here, worked mine number 2, and then had to wait at the junction because that's what their flagging instructions say. Then the passenger train goes by and it's all dramatic. Comes back, and then I fiddle stage it off after to get it out of the way. And then from there, there's usually 1 or 2 more shifters that go out to work either all the mines and the local work, or I'll do a shifter for the mines and then I'll send out a local or mixed passenger train. I do love my M, my little Model M, the 374, which doesn't exist, which I love. Neither does my layout, so it works. But that's the main tour. I'm trying to think. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, if anyone wants to ask a question, just unmute your microphone and fire away. David will answer.
What do you use for turnout control?
Yeah. There are a few turnouts that are fully controlled on the layout, and they are the ones that are part of the CTC installation. And then the 2 turnouts, you can see the little buttons on the other side over there for the continuous run. I had tortoises. I actually forget what these ones are called now. MP4s for the motors, and my layout runs off of layout command control. Most of the gears from RR circuits, and then I have a few boards that I made myself.
Okay, cool. Yeah, looking at the switch machines there, the replica switch machines, I said, I wondered what was underneath. So thank you.
Yeah. And then I didn't show it because everything's a bit of a mess, because you'll see all my painting supplies out because I'm working on layout. But there's a panel here for the switch, for the controlled siding, I should say, mainly. And then a few spots that I've marked off where there may be some inputs for locks that I just haven't installed yet. But so it has a panel that works too. Cool thing is that that's a physical panel, but I can actually, over just the Wi-Fi, I can have another panel running, like on the computer back there. If there's actually 3 people over and I need to be out of the way, I can control the layout from back there. Thanks to, that's a cool feature that you can have with the train control systems command station that I have. It lets you do Wi-Fi. So you can have your laptop or your computer that's not physically connected to the layout on the layout control bus. It's kind of nice. Thanks for the comment on the little town. This is a fun one. I turned some of the interior lighting on. You can start to see inside some of these buildings. You can see I see what I mean about the stained glass. It's kind of over the top for out here in the middle of nowhere. Let's see. I think this one a little bit there. And then, yeah, actually for Jim, your kit, if you can figure out what the heck is supposed to be inside these stations, I have not done that yet. That would be good to have interior kits for those.
Yeah, hopefully some partitions and maybe some benches in the passenger section, a little partition off the
Yeah,
the
freight
ticket
from
sellers area and that sort of thing. Haven't gotten quite that far yet.
Yeah, it's so I've got it's the waiting areas that I have are partitioned off. I just haven't put anything in them yet. I can see inside there. That's one thing I laughed about. I started lighting up the interiors of the buildings, and I was like, all of a sudden you have to start putting interiors into things or cloud the windows like this one still is. And then my wife started joking with me because she has her old doll house right here. You know, she starts joking me about what's the difference between the dollhouse and the mall again. Yeah, I got stuff lit up now.
So, David, I noticed this time around, I think you've got a plexiglass barrier strip, at least in one place on the edge.
Yeah,
But most of it isn't. How did you decide? Well, that one maybe to keep the cars from running off the end, but
that's it.
I'm thinking about the future, and if you're going to have people slash kids over looking at things, what's the pros and cons of having a barrier strip around different sections?
Yeah, so you're right. So it turns out you can get your own custom stuff laser cut by manufacturers really easily. Just order a bunch of them because drilling holes in these things is if you screw it up, you shatter the entire thing. Don't ask me how I know. I ordered like 10 and I messed up like so okay, with 3 people, even with the young kids, the 2-year-olds you got to watch. I got a 4-year-old, he's fine. It's actually adult visitors that you have to watch out for. Specifically, the first thing that they do is they want to touch the static grass. So this whole area just gets touched nonstop. That's been my biggest problem, but it's not, you know, when it's a small layout like this and you only have 2 or 3 people in the room, it's not that big of a deal. The other one is I think maybe the layout height helps with that. I want to say it was like 50, it's bar stool height, basically. It's bar height, basically. That does help. But with the aisles and everything and keeping stuff off, I knock on wood, that hasn't been a problem. But yeah, I don't remember how much more of that plexiglass, but I have more to run if I need to. And I actually might consider installing it with Velcro rather than screws, because it really is very easy to shatter this stuff if you get the drilling wrong.
There was a comment there that said they make special drill bits. And also, I was watching something on YouTube today about cutting the stuff, and they showed that if you put tape, just regular masking tape or painter's tape over it, it can allow you to cut it more easily without shattering. So there are some techniques for working with it, but yeah, it is finicky. Certainly more finicky than wood or most of the materials we're used to.
Yeah, more than plywood anyway.
Definitely.
Yeah. I don't have any experience with the plastics or coring or anything like that from my carpentry days. So yeah, that's good to know. It figures there's special bits for it, especially since I'm always the one lecturing people about not just using drywall screws on everything.
I got a ton of those right now because my basement is in the final phases of getting finished, and you use a ton of them.
Yeah, you really do. That shows the front of the station. And see there, they got the trim board piece on the right spot, right? Actually, gotta fix that. There you go. Turns out the roof was in the wrong spot. I've tried to make my buildings have removable roofs now. These ones are waiting their interior details, but they've got stained wood floors. I learned that after this one where I used even just a temporary adhesive to keep the roof on. That was a mistake. This one too, if I want to work on this one. And those ones, they just pop off. There's no roof. The interior on that one is all little boxes with just graphics printed. So that's, I don't even know what you call that. It's not a facade, but it's like something like that.
So
yeah,
if someone were to ask you what the most important things that you learned or have learned so far in the process that you didn't know starting out, what would you say are some of the, well, you already went over the fact that the foam is temperature and humidity dependent and can expand and contract. So that was a big thing that you learned. What are
Yeah.
for us people that still haven't dipped our toe in the water yet, but are getting ready to, what are some of the things that you would bestow upon us to keep us from making some mistakes as we get into this thing?
Yeah. So my big thing is, okay, the track. If it looks like it's got a kink, do it again. It never gets better, and it will only get worse. In fact, there's an area over here where it runs fine, and inside the tunnel, although this whole thing just pops right off. Actually, I'll go under and not to make everyone sick. I actually leave this open on purpose so people can see. So this just comes right off. This is the tunnel liner that just picks up when this isn't there. And okay, that stays, but that can come off if you wanted to. Yeah, don't leave any kinks. If you see a kink, do it again. And it sounds silly to say it like that, but they don't get better. So everything runs fine unless I'm pushing my radius limits, and I've got a railway post office car that just derails every single time in there. Makes it out, but yeah. The other one is so learn how to do a full corner without kinks. That's hard. That's really hard to do right. And I've messed that up a bunch myself. Because it does help. So I hand laid that corner over there just this week, and I pre-bent the rail with a rail bender. That is an excellent idea because essentially this rail here is only held down onto the tie plates and then the ties. The adhesive is not holding it, this way. It's only keeping it down. Mostly, right? It's a little bit of spring in there, but you take the spring tension out of it and then it stays pretty good. That leads me to say is easements are worth doing. So this was one of two areas on my layout where stuff would derail. And actually, like I said, I had an expansion. You can see the line that's still there because I'm actually just patching this today. But that line is still there. That would actually follow it down through here previously. The bridge was glued here, and then it used to end about here, and it expanded and contracted with enough force to pop like a legit solder joint.
Wow.
On two rails. So, yeah. So when I say expansion and contraction, it's a real thing. Which is actually one of the reasons why in this case, this whole thing, there's gotta find them, shoot. There's gaps here and here, and they're offset, which is something I learned. But nothing is soldered, so that in theory, it can all expand and contract. Like here and here isn't soldered either. There's a gap. And then here and here at the transition between the new work and the old work, there's also no solder. So hopefully that'll do a little better with the expansion and contraction, giving it 4 places essentially to do it rather than popping my one solder joint and wrecking my day. Which I guess track laying is a big one, because obviously if the railroad doesn't run right, then it's no fun. The other one is I am constantly, when I'm putting in track, checking level. So I'm running 24 or 26-inch radius with easements, depending on the corner. And if it's not within the bubble, so you kind of can only max out one thing at a time. So you can go left, right, up, down, and then, you know, pitch and roll, right? You can only max one of those out at a time and let finicky rolling stock work. So this is another problem that can happen with your layout is that the track is not flat, side to side wise. I mean, you know, as in it doesn't, if you're looking at the rails head on, it's doing this or that. That's a huge one. But if you have giant corners, it may not matter as much, but on a 24 or 26-inch radius, which is what this layout is, yeah, you'll just derail trains. They'll bind up and kink in weird ways and then come off the tracks. And then the other one is scenery. Lance Minham's How to Build a Switching Layout, or one of those books, has, I would say, the entry-level way to do something pretty decent. And it kind of all boils down to scene, like color selection. And he gives you a list of materials that work well. Follow his says. This over here, as I've been learning over the years, this is a little bit more from the model, military modeling community. So if it comes to scenery and painting, the other thing I'll tell you is go figure out what the military modelers do. They are way ahead of us model railroaders when it comes to painting and scenery. Way, way ahead. They have tools and techniques that we just don't do and never heard of. And they work great. So, you know, that was a long way to answer a simple question, I suppose.
I have some construction questions. What kind of roadbed are you using? It looks like there's no cork, the traditional height of a cork roadbed. What's your approach to roadbed?
Yeah, so this is a branch line that, and you know, and looking at a lot of the photographs, there wasn't a huge profile, like the grade didn't have that, you know, traditional profile you're thinking of for to warrant having sub roadbed. I like cork more than foam. I've used both. The layout handles having a profile on the side, and this is one thing the foam is nice for. A little bit difficult to make out, but it is elevated. If I can get it to focus. And here you can see another fault line because of the foam. Trying to think but I did actually carve ditches into the layout. A little easier to see around the side here. But essentially it is cut in a little bit of an angle off to the side to give it some elevation and some profile. But no, this is put directly onto the I don't know what you call it, it's not sub roadbed, but onto the what would be plywood or the foam. You could also consider using N scale cork for something like this.
When you go without a roadbed of any sort, does it add to your, I'll just say volume? Does it sound louder when you're running the trains? That's been one of my things, is without going straight onto the foam, it just seems like it makes it louder.
Yeah, the foam is loud, and I don't recommend using foam. If I can do it all again, I wouldn't have. You can actually, so I'll give you this. So this is the foam. This is plywood now. That's just wood. But the difference in sound, this is over here, and this is the different parts. This whole thing is plywood. This does have a sub roadbed. It's cork through here. You see it a lot more if you can. I don't know if I can get a different angle here. Probably a little. Yeah, it's hard to make out with the resolution. Over here, you can kind of make out a lot better. This is so much quieter than foam. It's I mean, you literally hear like that drum, that noise, background noise, and then it literally goes away when the train's over here. Yeah.
Did you say previously that your method for attaching the track was adhesive, or how do you? You
So
said
I
something
would,
about matte medium or something, but I didn't
yes.
catch all of it.
Yeah, so that I've been consistent with, and I still love that. So the other thing to your point is that the layout before the ballast and scenery was added, sound wise versus after, the matte medium and the scenery will deaden out a lot of the sound, a lot, compared to when it's just foam with nothing else. It's probably like half the noise or something like that. The layout is built with essentially a drop of CA every, call it this far, maybe a little closer on corners. And then that's just to hold it in place for matte medium. Matte medium is it's a binder part of paint. This happens to be matte, as in a matte finish, so it doesn't reflect light, scatters it, so it looks dull. Dries transparent. If you have good stuff, which I recommend getting the good stuff. Golden is a good one. Liquitex is another good one. Matte medium, as opposed to any other form of scenery cement, is my recommendation. It's very, very strong. So it's as strong as any other adhesive that you need. If you need to work on your layout, you can just soak it with IPA for like 30 seconds. And I'm not exaggerating, like 30 seconds. The whole area will loosen up. But then if you leave it and don't touch it, it'll go back. But that's my preference. But yeah, I don't recommend doing a layout like this. If I were to do this again, I would use probably 1/8 Baltic birch with a cork on top of that, all glued together and sealed with something like a Varathane or something similar. And then that would still let you carve in like I did along here to put the ditches along and add a little bit of that that profile that you would expect to see. And I've got one of the drawing schematic books from the Historical Society of track profiles and everything else. So yeah. I definitely enjoy modeling that part, but this particular branch line didn't need that profile. Matte medium is I highly recommend that for basically all scenery stuff. You'll coat everything in a plastic. It doesn't fall apart with age. It stays strong. It also is completely compatible with all acrylic paints and other things like that. Pumice medium gels or fiber gels and things like that. It's all completely compatible. So, I mean, because shoot, it's part of the paint. So, but that's what I recommend there. I mean, even this stuff here is acrylic. This is just a gloss medium instead of a matte medium, with green added in to make it swamp-like. But and then my little birds on it, stuff like that. Got everything on stop right now. The trees. So here's another thing I'll say. Now, this is about presentation about. I like to use my litmus test for did I do a decent enough job on something is, does someone who doesn't like trains think it looks good? So one of the things I've noticed with visitors, if you don't have a layout yet, is the first thing they notice is the grass. The second thing they notice is the trees. And then the third thing they notice is the photo backdrop. They don't even notice there's trains until they've been in here like 3, 4, 5 minutes. Photo backdrops are great. This one, Backdrop Junction, maybe it's been so long now, I don't remember. As I joke, it's the closest I can come to replicating the Blue Ridge Mountains up here in Boston. But the static grass for scenery, and then I used Super Trees across here mainly, and I'm starting to add in some kind of, I call them bespoke trees. Like this was my first attempt at wire trees, and it's not great, but it's coming along. And the trees, these trees look a lot like maybe an ash tree or something like that, the super trees do. And since they look enough like a tree someone's seen, it seems like they're good enough to suspend disbelief. So if you need to make 500 trees, super trees are a pretty good option. And I'd say you can use the super trees with like, of course, ground turf, paint them gray, well, soak them in matte medium to seal them up, paint them gray, and then dump a whole bunch of green stuff on them until they look like enough like a tree for you. And then that'll go fast enough that you can actually make 500 of the darn things. I mean, I think I actually have 200 or something like that, 250. There's 2 cases of them here anyway, of the big cases. And being able to get those done and on the layout really helped. And yeah, you kind of get better at it. Like over here are kind of my earliest attempts. And I'm sorry, I'll stop moving so quick on you. And then over here are some of my later attempts, and they look more like trees over here than on the other side, but still probably good enough.
All right. Do we have more questions or comments from the viewers out there? Just unmute and fire away.
Yeah.
What did you use for ballast and like the cinders in the yards?
Oh yeah. I really love natural materials. So the cinders are cinders. It looks like cinders because it is. Everything else is limestone and real dirt. I use Arizona Rock and Minerals, although Scenic Express or Scenery Express, whatever it's called, is also pretty good. But yeah, so this whole yard is cinders. Looks a lot like cinders if it's ground up to the right. Well, that sounds dumb. So sometimes like wood, if it's huge with grains, it doesn't look right on HO scale, right? But this stuff does work at scale. So as long as it's ground up small, it'll work really well for HO scale cinders. And then you can laugh and say because it's real cinders, but that's actually not a trivial thing. And then Arizona Rock and Mineral. I used the CSX. Was it Norfolk Southern Wabash General blend? It looks all right. I vary between using the HO and the N scale stuff. A lot of ballast, if you look at it, and this is something I went nuts with for a while, and it doesn't really matter. So don't go nuts with it like I did. But if you look at like the Woodland Scenics ballast, and then you like count like 2 or 3 pebbles between, like 1 or 2 rocks wide between the tracks, that's way too big. And so like over here, you'll see N scale, and then there you actually get, like, if you count them out, you'll get something similar to, the right number of rocks between the sleepers. Over here, this is general terrain. So this is like, I was joking. I started like 2 weeks ago. This was finished. I ripped all this out because I was having, I wanted to do it. This is, what is it? This stuff here. So this started off as pink foam, golden fiber paste. I used about a jar this big on this whole area here. And then after that dried, I primed it all with just a gray primer. Except over here where I used a green, and that's for the river, which is a work in progress. Then there's various shades of real limestone, dirt, dust, mixed in, scattered throughout on top of that, soaked in with matte medium, then sprayed with alcohol, and then soaked in with more matte medium mixed with water. And then this is actually the first time I've ever started painting on top of that. So here you can kind of see They don't shadow ruin it. Like you can start to see like highlights and shadows and valleys in the terrain. And I can do that on a model, on like a passenger car or a locomotive, but I've never done it in terrain before. So I'm having a lot of fun with this. Any other materials? No, that's about it. The other nice thing about the real, so cinders wash away a little easier than that, but the limestone, you can get it wet and put glue on it and it won't crater or wash away as easily as the Woodland Scenic stuff. Nothing against that stuff. I've used it before and it comes out looking pretty good. But this does not wash away as easily. And that is, I've got experience with that, ruining like an entire section, having to do it again.
Yeah, Woodland Scenics, as I heard, was ground walnut shell. So yeah, they're pretty light. They'll wash away. So
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I'm not knocking the stuff. It's I've used it before and it came out looking good. But yeah, somehow if you get the real stuff just right, it just seems to have a look to it. Like right there, just with the real different random shapes and everything else and the different types of dirt. This is something I've been thinking about doing. Speaking of scenery materials, this is from Mini Prints. I got these, but this is 3D printed cornrows. These things are amazing. Like I've been debating putting them in here just because of how great these things are. I mean, if you can get in and look at them, like, and I grew up on a small little farm, so I've stared at corn a good bit of my life, and this is the best model of corn stalks growing I've seen. Yeah, I've been considering doing that. And you get a pack, like 2 packs would be enough for like this area. But it's something to think about. Then down here, this is just different sizes of the same rock. Over here, this is pumice medium, which you can get from Golden. It's like a general art supply type of thing. Painted up with a bunch of grays and stuff like that. So this was like try number 1 with this stuff before I went over and did the swamp, and then I went over and started doing that area over there. And I'll come back over here and get it back up to my standards now. But well, I think I talked everyone's ear off. Any other questions?
Yeah, who did you say made the corn, the 3D corn?
Mini Prints. They're out of Canada.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, and it's it's not 3D print models are pretty pricey, but it's not too bad for what you get, I think. And they look great. I mean, just compared to anything else.
Interesting. Have to take a look at it. Thanks.
Yeah. They also have a lot of really eclectic little prints that are pretty fun, so that's worth looking at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
You could hide an alien somewhere. I actually have a little Halloween set that I haven't put out yet, but I have like a bunch of pumpkins and a ghost and some other stuff that I set up over here, and then tie in, and one of them will blink, little stuff like that.
Sure, the kids love that.
Yeah, they do.
All right. If everybody has had their chance to ask questions and comment, I'm going to be the first to thank David very kindly for allowing us into his world and showing us what he has accomplished and a little bit about how he has made the magic happen. I would encourage any of you that also either have a layout or are in the process of building one, if you wouldn't mind inviting people into your world, we can set up more of these meetings. If you know of somebody else that has a layout that you find interesting, you might either send me their name and I can contact them, or contact them yourself and see if they would be willing to host a little session like this. I found it very informative and very entertaining myself, and I hope everybody else did. So, I guess if there are no other questions or comments, I will call this a wrap. I've been recording it. As soon as I can get around to it, I will put the file up on the NWHS YouTube site. So if you missed something, you can review it, or people that weren't able to attend tonight will be able to reference it in the future. Any other closing words or comments from anyone?
Thank you, David.
Yeah, thanks, David. That was great.
Yeah, thanks, David.
Well done.
Thank you. Well, I hope you had fun listening to me ramble.
You did a good job, man.
Thanks. Well, good night,
All right.
everybody.
And with that, I am going to end the session.